In today's video, we have a lot of updates on NHL news and rumors concerning the Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, Columbus Blue Jackets, Colorado Avalanche, Philadelphia Flyers, St. Louis Blues, and others. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover today. We have a variety of NHL news and rumors I want to discuss with you here today. And I want to kick things off with longtime professional goaltender Mike McKenna has decided to call it a career and retire. Now, McKenna mostly played in the American Hockey League. He's the ultimate journeyman goaltender, bounced around to several NHL and AHL clubs. Of course, this past year, he split time between the Ottawa Senators, Vancouver Canucks, and Philadelphia Flyer organizations. He's 36 years old. Probably had his best hockey with the Texas Stars en route to a Calder Cup championship a few years ago, but McKenna certainly deserves a lot of credit for being an ultimate perseverance and sticking with his dream to play in the NHL. He's a guy who put in a lot of time and a lot of effort and really bounced around a lot and stuck with it. Even though he didn't see a ton of success at the NHL level, he's still, like I said, the ultimate pro journeyman goaltender. Now, we also had another goaltender retire today. Longtime Hurricanes goaltender Kane Ward has also announced his retirement today. He signed a one-day contract with the Carolina Hurricanes so he can retire as part of that organization. It's not quite clear if they plan to retire his number or anything at this time, but Kane Ward has signed a one-day contract. Of course, he had his ultimate run with the Hurricanes as a rookie back in 2006, guiding them all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and winning a Stanley Cup championship. Of course, he recently played with the Chicago Blackhawks on a one-year stint here as well. But like I said, now he goes back to Carolina to retire as a member of that organization. So a couple of great long-time goaltenders. Of course, Ward had a lot more success at the NHL level than McKenna, but two great goalies calling it a career here as of today. Now, some other news as well include former Montreal Canadiens defenseman Andre Markov, who we've discussed before, has been looking to make a return to the NHL. Last time when he was with the Habs, when things fell short of getting a new contract, which resulted in him going to the KHL, he was representing himself at that point, trying to iron out a new contract with GM Mark Bergevin. Now, he has decided now to hire himself an agent. He's hired Alan Walsh, who's one of the top agents around the NHL. It was announced by Walsh himself on his Twitter feed today that he signed Andre Markov as a new client, that he's currently working out in Florida, looking for work in the NHL. We did have indications before that there were some talks between Markov and the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, nothing's materialized as of yet. Doesn't mean it won't. I know many Habs fans are kind of seem to be split on the decision whether or not to bring him back. He's really close to 1,000 NHL games. Of course, all his previous NHL games were with the Montreal Canadiens. So in some ways, it would be nice to see him return to be able to get that accomplishment under his belt as a member of the Habs. But at the same time, he certainly is getting older. I know his knees have taken a beating over the years. Not quite as quick as he used to be, and his numbers even in the KHL has declined a little bit as well during his time over there. So I guess we'll see. But either way, he now has himself an agent and is actively seeking NHL work, as we reported previously. Now, quick update here on RFA defenseman Zach Werenski in the Columbus Blue Jackets. There was a recent interview with GM Jarmo Kekalainen with some updates on the situation, as well as some other moves or lack thereof that they ended up not making here during free agency. He did indicate on the Werenski front that he hopes to have a contract in place with Werenski before training camp gets underway. He sounded pretty confident in his answers that things are progressing, that maybe they are pretty close to getting a deal done. Maybe Werenski will be the first D-man to get something done to kind of set the market for the other RFA defensemen. It'll be nice to see some of these guys get signed to make sure they're going to be able to play on time this year. So obviously a lot of these guys are some of the top players in the NHL, top players on their team. So, certainly with a lot of these RFAs with the potential to miss time, certainly not from a fan's perspective, not anything that's fun or anything to look forward to. So hopefully we see some movement, but Kekalainen did certainly seem pretty confident that a deal was getting close with Werenski. So we'll see how things progress on that front. But he did have some other comments to make on free agency involving Artemi Panarin and Matt Duchene. Now, of course, part of the Matt Duchene trade with Ottawa, if he would have resigned in Columbus, they had another conditional pick going to the Senators. Plus, he knew that the long-term contract that Duchene was going to be seeking was going to be pretty rich and expensive. So a combination of those two things kind of shied him away from pushing too hard to re-sign Duchene. I think he was certainly open to it, but it doesn't sound as though Columbus was real serious about bringing him back based on what they knew he'd be looking for, the extra pick going to the Senators, etc. So ultimately, it doesn't look like Columbus pushed too terribly hard to keep him, but on the Artemi Panarin front, he did say they tried everything in their power during the season, right up to the last second, in order to try to keep the star player with the team. But ultimately, the Rangers won that battle and got him signed, but they did push super hard to make things interesting. As we've seen, as free agency was getting ready to open, we heard all kinds of rumors about the Blue Jackets coming in at the 11th hour, kind of revamping their offer, really gave Panarin something serious to think about. But ultimately, I think it was more to it than just money involved in his decision. But just some interesting tidbits there between Panarin and Duchesne, and the fact that they're both confident team, but how the team decided to handle those contract negotiations. Longtime NHL player Scott Gomez, who has been recently working with the New York Islanders and their coaching staff, has left the club. He was not fired or let go by the Islanders. It was his decision to leave, but he's no longer working with them. I'm not sure if he'll resurface in another capacity or what the exact reasons are around the change, but Gomez is no longer with the Islanders as of now. Well, Sabres forward Jason Pominville recently had another interview and indicated he still wants to play, still feels like he's got gas in the tank, still feels like he can contribute and be a good member of the team, but at the same time is looking for the right situation to work well with his family. Obviously, over the years, family sacrifices quite a bit for NHL players, so since they're on the road so much, etc. And right now he's at a stage in his life where he just really wants it all to work, to hopefully keep playing, but at the same time be close to home and have everything work from a family perspective. So I do think ideally he'd like to sign with the Sabres. There is indications that he has had some talks with GM Jason Botterill in Buffalo, but of course right now we don't have a signing. Not really quite clear at this point if the Sabres are interested in bringing him back or not, but Pominville clearly has the desire to keep playing and will remain to be seen here if he signs with Buffalo or anybody else before the start of training camps. There are reports indicating that Toronto Maple Leaf forward Zach Hyman has been doing some skating, so obviously that part of the rehab process is beginning for his knee injury that he's been rehabbing. It still looks pretty clear that Zach Hyman likely will not make opening night for the Maple Leafs. As we've discussed before with the Maple Leafs and their salary cap situation, Hyman and Dermott, along with other guys like Clarkson and Horton, likely go on long-term injury reserve to start the season, giving the Leafs the necessary cap space to hopefully sign Mitch Marner and kind of round out their roster. But with Hyman skating now, it makes me wonder if he might be ahead of schedule, and if he's ahead of schedule, then that might force the Leafs to make a move maybe sooner than we might have thought. Obviously, the longer these guys stay on long-term injury reserve, the more time it buys the Maple Leafs to make some decisions on what other moves they're going to make. Obviously, when Hyman and Dermott come back and are ready to play, then their contracts will then count against the cap, and then obviously they'll have to have other roster moves or trades or something to make room for them to be part of the active roster. So get into training camp, we likely won't get any real updates on Hyman's condition, but it is encouraging though that he is skating and perhaps might be returning sooner than we might have thought. Looks as though the St. Louis Blues and forward Ivan Barbashev are still quite a ways apart on a contract, as much as $500,000, and it's been reported that he's looking for somewhere around $2 or slightly more than $2 million per year, whereas GM Doug Armstrong prefers to be somewhere around 1.5 or even a little bit less. So there's quite a gap there to be closed. $500K on a $9-10 million contract might not seem like a lot, but on the size of contract we're talking here for Barbashev, it certainly is a substantial amount. So we'll see here how the Blues proceed. We saw Pat Maroon leave via free agency to go to Tampa, so clearly the Blues likely will fill any necessary roster spots with their young prospects that are knocking on the door and ready to get into NHL action. But Ivan Barbashev is yet another member of the NHL's RFA club that if they aren't signed, they have options to play overseas. Of course, we saw Jesse Puljujarvi sign with the Finnish club yesterday. We've heard reports on other RFAs maybe talking to other teams as a just-in-case thing to have something lined up so that they can stay active during their NHL absence if there is indeed one. So I guess we'll see, but either way, right now, there's still no indication that they're getting any closer, and Barbashev might end up playing elsewhere to start the year until they can get a contract hammered out. Now the same goes for Colorado Avalanche star Mikko Rantanen. It looks as though the Avs and Rantanen are still quite a substantial ways apart on a new contract. We don't really have any figures right now on what Rantanen is looking for, what's being offered, or anything that specific. But all we know is that the talks are quite a ways apart and coming to terms, and that he's heading to Norway for right now for training and skating purposes. And like the other guys, there is talks that he very well could look to play over there somewhere if he's not signed by the time the NHL season gets underway. But obviously the Colorado Avalanche are one of the teams amongst all the teams that have RFAs unsigned that have a lot of salary cap space to handle that situation. It's pretty clear that he will be the highest paid player on the team based on other contracts already in place for guys like McKenna and Landeskog. But really, right now, looks as though they're quite a ways apart. We don't really have any more updates than that. But he's another guy like Barbashev and others who very well could end up playing overseas if they're not signed by the time training camp starts or by the time the NHL season gets underway. KHL winger Anton Bertasov apparently has been looking to make the jump over to the NHL here as well. Apparently his camp did have some talks talks with the Philadelphia Flyers. There was believed to be some interest there, but they've opted not to sign him. Obviously, they have a ton of young prospects in-house that they've opted to give more of the opportunity to, but another guy who's looking to make the jump from the KHL. Not quite clear if his agents had talks with any other teams, but the Flyers were one team that was mentioned that did have some talks and were interested, but decided not to proceed with signing him. Like I said, they have all kinds of young players themselves, so it's a little bit surprising that they would explore that, but I guess at the same time, when you have an opportunity to make your team better, you have to at least explore it. I guess we will find out, though, if any other NHL clubs express interest and he ends up getting a contract elsewhere or ends up back in the KHL for the coming year. So that is all your latest NHL news and rumors here for today. Of course, as always, we'll know your thoughts and opinions on everything we discuss, so leave your comments down below and we can continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.